It's going to be hard to beat the 2024 wide receiver class, but we got some real contenders to do it here in a deep 2025 wide receiver class. My name is Matt Higgs, the F Educator, and I am joined as always by John Lobb, the Gridiron Scholar. We're going to be going through our consensus top 8 wide receivers in the 2025 class at this point in time. I'd say there's a pretty good amount of talent at the top and a pretty, there's some good depth here. We had to fight for, who was guys 7 and 8 that we were going to talk about here, John. So overall, I would say at this point, I don't think it's as good of a class, but I certainly think it could build up into, maybe that class from 2021, going back to that Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Drake London, that type of talent I think is in play.
I agree that there is potential for this class to grow and get better. But if we're looking at it right now, first of all, you don't have 3 studs who are probably going to the top 10. That was just insanity. Also, the current class we just went through in the NFL draft, the depth was amazing. I don't think the depth is as deep. I agree. We had some disagreements on who's number 7, who's number 8. But I bet if we said do 12, we would probably come to a consensus 12, where last year, once you got to pick like 10 to 20, people were all over the board. So I like this class, but we were spoiled last year.
Especially this early on in the process. We want to hear your feedback, your comments. So if you're watching on YouTube, drop us a comment. Let us know who we left off the list, who you're really excited about, even if we are talking about them. We absolutely love. And if you are listening, we appreciate you. We see those 5-star reviews continuing to flow in. So before we get into our top 8, we have an honorable mention. And we're not going to spend too much time on them, but I thought it was important to we need to mention Travis Hunter, right? Travis Hunter, if you're not familiar, he plays 2 ways, all right? So he plays defensive back and he plays wide receiver for Colorado. He took the majority of his snaps. He was primarily a defensive back, but when he played wide receiver for the Buffs last year, he looked really good. He's got excellent ball tracking and great hand skills. He separates consistently, all traits you may expect from somebody who plays defensive back very well. I'd expect Travis Hunter at this point in time to be a top 10 selection in the NFL draft. But from a Devy perspective, the reason he's not in our top 8 consensus rankings is because both John and myself, like most folks, expect that at the NFL level, he will be playing at the defensive back, the cornerback position. John, anything to add on Travis Hunter, just as kind of a footnote? You might be tempted to draft him in your Devy leagues, and if it's super deep and you can use a later round pick, why not? But we would urge against prioritizing him in any sort of Devy draft at this point.
Absolutely. If you could confirm to me that Travis Hunter is a wide receiver in the NFL level, he'd probably be in the top 8 right now. But Matt, he's one heck of a cornerback.
Yeah, he's too good.
He's good. And here, you had mentioned his snaps. I actually wrote them down. This is an amazing number. He played 1,102 snaps last year, Matt. That is crazy. 475 on offense, 631 on defense, and 32 on special teams. He did win the Paul Hornady Award as the nation's most versatile player. And you mentioned his receiver, Matt. He had some picks that were amazing because he has a wide receiver. He has wide receiver hands as a cornerback. But here's how good he was as a receiver. 57 catches, 721 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And he missed 2.5 games. Matt, if I knew for a fact he was going to get me 45 snaps at the NFL level on the offensive side of the ball, I'm all in. I tend to think the NFL is going to want him at cornerback, right? But I love him. And my friends, he's a true junior. He played at Jackson State, historically black HBCU school, if you don't know. And then he moved up to Colorado with Deion Sanders last year.
All right. Let's go ahead. Let's get into the guys we actually expect to play wide receiver at the NFL level here. And our consensus number 8 wide receiver is Isaiah Bond, formerly of Alabama, transfers to Texas. He's going to be playing with the Longhorns, catching balls from Quinn Ewers this year. You know, when you look at Isaiah Bond, you're going to see a speedy field stretcher. You're going to see somebody who I think is going to have a lot of versatility. He's going to have a lot of appeal. His athleticism, he can contribute after the catch. John, he can contribute on special teams as well. You know, he's out there on kick returns. I think he absolutely could be out there on kick and punt returns for the Longhorns this season. For me, Bond, you know, if the draft happened today, you know, probably a day 3 pick. But he has the ability, he has all of those intangibles, right? He checks enough boxes where you see the ceiling is super high, and it's not super hard to project him being, you know, a top 75 or top 100 selection in the 2024 NFL draft, 2025 NFL draft.
I agree with you. And I have to admit, I've been a little slow to like this prospect in the Devy process. But over the last month, I've been digging deeper, watching more tape, and I have liked Isaiah Bond more and more. Now, we do have to know it's a little bit of a projection because the production model, he's not there at the top of the board yet. He was a unanimous 4-star prospect and prep All-American coming out of high school. He played 27 games with Alabama, and he made 12 starts, Matt. In those games, he had 65 catches for 888 yards and 5 touchdowns. Nothing unbelievable, but productive enough for his first 2 seasons on a college campus. I was surprised by this when I looked deeper, Matt. He led Alabama with 48 receptions last year, 668 yards, and he had 4 touchdowns in 11 starts, and he played in 14 games. I do think he has NFL potential, very much so. That's why we're profiling him on the Devy Show. He's going to Texas, and I think this is a great opportunity for the young man to really show if he is a top 100. I have him outside, just outside the top 100. But is he a day 2 pick? Going to the Longhorns with Quinn Ewers, upperclassman at quarterback, with a talented team, Bond could really make a step forward this year, Matt.
Absolutely. All right, let's get on to our consensus wide receiver 7 here. It's a name you may not know yet, but I think you're going to learn it by the end of the day. It's Elic Ayomanor, and he's an exciting player, man. Playing on the West Coast for Stanford, formerly in the Pac-12. Now he's going to be playing ACC football. 6'2", 210 pounds, man. And I got to tell you, man, he plays big man with speed, right? Like, he's fast off the snap. He's got good separation. I love his ability to win through the second into the third level of the field. But he's got that big man ball tracking ability. He adjusts to the ball well. He's got good body positioning. He's got clean hands, John. I mean, he was the Stanford offense. And there's some prospects where you watch them and you have to understand the quarterback play is not there. I mean, he's rising the tide here. Like, he's the guy pushing that offense and pushing that passing game up. Year 2, it should be a little bit better for him. I think he's really going to shine this year. And for me, you know, I think it's pretty, I don't want to say safe, but I feel pretty good with a top 100 NFL draft projection for him heading into the season at least.
Matt, you know I like my big boys, and I bet you if I asked you, like, who do I like in these players, you would have probably said EA. I'm calling him EA. I'm not going to try to butcher his name, but I like my big wide receivers, 6'2", 210. Matt, he's a classic X. He played 85% of his snaps last year on the outside, 15% in slot or inside. He's got the size. He's got the production. You had mentioned his speed, Matt, in high school. He ran the 100 meters in 10.76 and the 200 meters in 21.66. And when you watch the tape, he had football speed. right?
Yeah.
Like it
Oh, yeah.
translates, it translates onto the field. And he first popped to me in the game against Colorado, and it was one of those matchups. Travis Hunter was on EA, and at the end of the day, EA put on a performance for the ages, Matt. He had 13 receptions for 294 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, that is literally, you want to go watch a matchup, folks. Get tape from that game, Stanford versus Colorado. We're talking about 2 stud players, and they go to war in the second half. And I don't say that much, but that was some brilliant tape. The redshirt freshman finished the year with 62 receptions for over 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. That earned him honorable mention All Pac-12 and first team freshman All-American. But let's put it into context. First, Matt, you were very kind. The quarterback play was awful. You were kind. Stanford's quarterback play was awful. Second, how loaded was the Pac-12 at wide receiver last year, right? For this young man to make honorable mention just shows you how deep that position was in the conference. I'm all in. I have him scheduled for a couple early games that I got to watch him. I like EA a ton, Matt.
All right, let's get to our consensus wide receiver 6. That's Tre Harris out of Mississippi, 6'2", 205. When I'm watching Harris, I got to be honest, John, I see a good player. I see somebody with good ball skills. I like the way that he is always beating the defensive back to the spot on the field where he needs to be. He positions his body to win. And I think he's got pretty good acceleration for his size. But there's a reason we do consensus wide receiver rankings here. John's ranking pulled Harris all the way up the board here. So I'm going to let you just cook here and talk about the wide receiver from Ole Miss.
I seem to think, I guess I'm more bullish on him than a lot of people out there. First, everyone, he started at the G5 level at Louisiana Tech, and he was very good at Louisiana Tech. This is where I really like playing college fantasy football, everyone, because I had gotten some eyeballs on him when he was playing in the Conference USA. And he was first team in 2022 and all-conference second team in 2021. I had some reservations, Matt, about him moving up to the SEC. I was like, wow, is Tre Harris really stepping up that much? Like, I thought maybe Big Ten, maybe the Pac-12, right? But he went right into the belly of the beast with Lane Kiffin into Mississippi. And that, Matt, I was very impressed. I will admit, I did not have him. I don't think I had him on one college fantasy football team. I was a little concerned. And I have to admit when I'm wrong. I thought he hit a home run the first year in the SEC. He had 985 yards receiving, 54 receptions, and 8 touchdowns. Matt, he averaged 18.2 yards per catch. I do believe this is a little bit of a projection for me. Can he continue his growth? I agree, Matt. I like him a lot, but I would like to see, I'm hoping Lane Kiffin coaches him up. I think the young man learns, and he's willing to learn because he stepped up against very tough competition and was successful. And he enters this season among the nation's leaders. Career receptions, 160, 2,512 receiving yards. And Matt, basically over 3 seasons, he has averaged 17.2 yards per catch. If he goes out and makes first or second team all SEC, and he ends up with like 220 career receptions, Matt, the NFL is going to like him a lot. I'm on the Tre Harris bandwagon.
There's the good news. If you flip on the Ole Miss offense this year to watch Tre Harris, yeah, you're also going to get a chance to watch Juice Wells, who we were big on going into last year before he suffered injury. He was at South Carolina. He transferred to Ole Miss. You know, he still has a shot to absolutely be at least a day 3 prospect. You have Jordan Watkins, the slot, who a lot of folks really like as a potential day 3 guy. And of course, you got Jackson Dart throwing him the ball, and we did our quarterback video already, where we talked about Jackson Dart. So when you're highlighting the offenses that you're going to want to watch this fall, Ole Miss is definitely up there on that list. But let's go ahead. Let's talk about our consensus wide receiver 5. And that's going to be a name that's pretty familiar around Devy circles. We've been waiting for him to be draft eligible. It's going to be Barion Brown, 6'1", 166 pounds, out of Kentucky. Now, Barion Brown, man, like, he is destined to be a little bit controversial, right? Like, we talk about these guys that are fast, they're athletic, they're versatile, they make a big impact at the college level. I love Barion Brown's ability to separate. He does it with speed. He's got really consistent hands at all 3 levels of the field. He contributes on special teams. I think he's going to be valuable to an NFL offense. I think he's going to go day 2. But we talk about, John, all the time with these super athletic guys. It's a little bit of a double-edged sword, right, in terms of their ability to translate from the college to the pro level. Where do you fall at this point with Barion Brown out of Kentucky?
Another player I've been a little slow to come around on, Matt, but I like this Devy process. You clear out from the last draft, you get to look at some numbers, you watch some tape that you might have missed, because I've been watching other players on Kentucky. Now, there were highlights that I'll discuss soon about Barion Brown. But in my model, and my first concern that I had to get over, he's 166 pounds. Now, we just saw Xavier Worthy get drafted by the Chiefs. So it's not as bothersome to me as it was a couple of years ago, but he's clearly on the lighter side. He doesn't have the big boy frame. He was a 4-star prospect in high school. And in 2022, he was an all-true freshman team, true freshman All-American. And here's where I like to look back and see the stats, because if you would ask me, we were watching Will Levis, right? So I'm studying Will Levis. I'm trying to get a draft profile of Will Levis. And I look back and Barion Brown led the team in receiving. I was like, I would not have guessed that. Like, I just honestly did not know that. As a freshman, he had 50 catches for 628 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's a pretty nice freshman year. Then 2023, he had another nice season. 43 catches for 539 yards and 4 scores. But Matt, what's going to earn this young man day 2 draft capital? The rules have changed in the NFL. He's an extraordinary kick returner. There's just going to be a team. I think right now, Matt, if you put him in 20 teams in the NFL, I think he could return kicks this year for them. I mean, he is just tremendous. He was first-team All-American, second-team All-SEC. This stat is mind-blowing, Matt. 16 kick returns for 576 yards, and he had a nation-high 3 touchdowns. That is 36 yards per run back, folks. That literally flips the field. I mean, if he's catching the ball on the 5-yard line and he gets his average, you have a first down at the 41. I think the NFL is going to love him. Also, he had 3 punt returns for 51 yards. Matt, he has a role from day 1 as a special teamer with upside at receiver. I'm now very interested in Barion Brown. It took me a while to come around to him.
The sleeper from Kentucky, by the way, is Dane Key, another wide receiver. Yes. I am big on Dane Key. He just missed our consensus rankings, but he's got that big man size, contested catch ability, good ball tracking. He's very athletic for his size as well. So that's what you get for actually, digging into the video. You get the bonus nuggets here. But John, you get way more bonus nuggets in our in-depth Devy rankings. Over 200 players ranked over at patreon.com/rookiebigboard. Those Devy rankings come with dynasty rankings, 2024 rookie class rankings, 2025 rookie class rankings, articles breaking down our rankings, as well as 2024 NFL seasonal projections, 2024 rookie guide, and access, most importantly, access to the Rookie Big Board Discord to get personalized advice for your Devy leagues, your C2C leagues, your CFF leagues, your Dynasty leagues. We're rebuilding rosters year round. You have to join us over at patreon.com/rookiebigboard. It's the absolute best way to get ahead of your league mates. Let's go ahead. Let's get into consensus wide receiver 4 here. Now, this one's projection. We got to be clear. This is projection, but we talked about this with the running backs episode, right? At this point in the preseason, projection is valuable. You just have to understand, what you're walking into. And Evan Stewart, the wide receiver formerly at Texas A&M, now he's at Oregon, 6'1", 175. Now, the production wasn't super consistent, but you can realistically explain that away at Texas A&M. But when you do watch the tape, what you're going to see is somebody who has super clean hands. I love Evan Stewart's ability to work in traffic. For a guy who's 170 pounds, he's fearless over the middle. He separates even against defensive backs that hang over him. He's speedy. He's not just fast. He's speedy. He's quick. He moves well east to west just as much as he does in a straight line. But don't get me wrong, he's going to test well in the 40. All right. And he's a scrappy player, man. He catches that ball. He wants more after the catch. He's going to be stepping into the Troy Franklin role at Oregon. He's going to be catching balls from Dylan Gabriel, who we talked about in the quarterback episode. We're very excited about. John's going to talk about his stats and his limited production in his first 2 seasons at Texas A&M. He's going to have an opportunity to easily have more production in his junior year than both of his first 2 years combined once he's slotted into a Dan Lanning offense as opposed to a Jimbo Fisher offense.
I wish I had been a teacher at Evan Stewart's school and was around this young man. I would have said, please don't go to Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M. You are so talented. You are so good. This offense is not going to be what you want it to be to get where you can be. You mentioned it. In 2 seasons at College Station, he had 91 receptions for 1,163 yards and 6 scores. Matt, he should have doubled those numbers. He is that good. I mean, he's been on my radar for years. He was a 5-star recruit. He played in the Under Armour All-American game, and he ran track and field in high school. As a true freshman, he earned SEC All-American and Freshman All-American honors. But he was stuck on the Aggies. He made the best decision. Either him, his family, people around him, go to Oregon, young man. You mentioned what Dan Lanning did for Troy Franklin, what Dan Lanning's done for Tez Johnson, who's a legitimate. There's another player we could have talked about, right? But just missed the cut this year. Dan Lanning is one of the best offensive coaches in the nation. He will utilize Stewart's skill set so much better, Matt. Like, he is going to impress scouts. He's going to impress CFF fans, Devy fanatics like us. I think the NFL is going to love Evan Stewart, Matt. I really do. I'm all in on him. He's a first-round Devy pick. I have a first-round grade. It's a little bit of a projection. I mean, I'm projecting like 75 receptions at Oregon this year. Hey, not only that, we'd even mention, we previewed Dylan Gabriel. He has a legitimate NFL quarterback throwing the football in a great offense. Go get Evan Stewart, everyone.
All right. For me, now we're entering into a tier break, right? We're going into the top 3 guys. And that's why off the bat, I've kind of compared this class, the potential of this class, to the 2022 class, right? Where there were those 3 wide receivers at the top and Olave, Wilson, and Drake London. And I'm not saying it's a 1-for-1, but, we head into the top class here. We have a great route runner. We have a guy who can play inside out from the slot, and we got a big man we're going to talk about. But let's start here with Emeka Egbuka, 6'1", 205. He's the experienced guy of the group. He's the veteran of this group. He's been productive, and he's put together a really nice tape reel for Ohio State over the last few years. And now he's stepping into an offense where he really should be the wide receiver one. Now, we're excited about Jeremiah Smith. A lot of folks are excited about Jeremiah Smith, but it's pretty reasonable to expect that Emeka Egbuka is going to be the guy in this offense, see 90 plus targets. He's, for me, is a very short-handed wide receiver. I love his hands. He's really consistent. He's a great underneath consistent wide receiver. He runs the bottom of the route tree very well. You know, I think he gets off the line with nice feet. I think he is able to separate off the snap. But for me, what I want to see for Egbuka is I want to see him work through the middle of the field a bit more, right? I want to see him work some posts. I want to see him work some more complicated routes because he separates really consistently, but I want to see him do that at a higher level to show that he's more than just a beefed up slot wide receiver, right? And I think that's where we're going to get with Emeka Egbuka. I just don't think they've needed him to be that X-type guy, but now they will. And if he puts it all together this year, John, no doubt in my mind that he slides into the first round.
I currently have a first-round grade. I agree with you. Matt, you and I took him with the first pick in our C2C league last summer with, on the college side, because I expected him to be in the NFL. I understand why he came back for another season. Unfortunately, it was disappointing and some injuries slowed him down, and he had this player named Marvin Harrison on the other side of the field. So he made a decision to come back. Also, Brian Hartline is a great wide receivers coach, and he has put many of these young men into the NFL, specifically first round. So I think he said, let me come back. Ohio State's loaded. Let me make sure I'm a first-round pick because last year's draft class was so strong. So he made a great decision. The year before, in 2022, he had 75 catches for 1,151 yards and 10 scores. Matt, he was second team All Big Ten, and he was a finalist for the Paul Hornung Award. And even in 2021, he was a freshman All-American. This young man has all the traits that you are looking for with an up and down production model. Is he going to be as good as he was 2 years ago? Or was last year kind of the path he's now on? I'm banking on that he returns to his form of 2022 and he has another 70 catch season and he warrants and solidifies that first round draft capital.
All right, now let's get into our wide receiver 2. And I got to be honest, technically these guys are tied. Wide receiver 1 and 2 are tied. We've got them flipped between me and John. But we'll get into my current wide receiver 1, John's wide receiver 2. And that's Luther Burden, the wide receiver out of Mizzou. 5'11", 201. I'm a huge fan of Burden. I think he comes with a really high floor as a prospect. He's sure-handed, he's versatile, and he is fast, man. But he's not just fast. He's got a great release. And that is one thing, if you've been listening to the Rookie Big Board for 5-6 years now, that's something that I get excited about. When a player wins off the line of scrimmage with sharp footwork, with sharp handwork, with the ability to separate off the first step, it translates really well to the NFL. What I also like about Luther Burden is he has some versatility to his game. As a true freshman, he played on the outside. Last year, he moved inside into the slot, but it's not because he's a pure slot type wide receiver. In the Eli Drinkowitz offense, that's the head coach and offensive coordinator for Mizzou. In the Eli Drinkowitz offense, the slot receiver's the primary wide receiver. So, he took over that X-type role despite the fact that it was an inside role technically last year. So I think Burden brings a lot of scheme versatility to his future NFL team as well. For me, he does start off as a top 10, top 15 NFL draft selection. I'm very excited about him. I think the NFL is very excited about him. And you know what? I think John's pretty excited about him as well.
I'm very excited. And this is not a stylistic comp, but we've discussed it a lot, and context matters and understanding the system that the player is in. When Matt and I discussed Drake London as a Debbie prospect, I think it was 4 years ago now. We've been doing, like you said, for a while.
Heads up.
We discussed Drake London moving from the inside outside and why that was so important in the USC system. Remember, Drake London played with a man named Amon-Ra St. Brown, so he had predominantly played in the slot. And when he moved outside, he became a star and he earned his first-round draft capital. Burden is similar. Matt alluded to, and I think this is very important context. Elia Drinkowicz has a very good offensive system. But that system, Matt, loves to pepper the slot receiver with the targets. As a freshman, Burden was kind of out there all by himself at the X. And for those of us who were excited about Burden, watching him in 2022, you were a little disappointed because you're like, where's the targets? Where's the production? What is happening? And last summer, we heard about it in the spring and then more in the summer training camp that Burden's going to play in the slot. Well, that's when he skyrocketed in college fantasy football. He was a 5-star recruit, and he's basically the highest graded player to ever go to Missouri. And Matt, this young man just dominated in the slot. And he is an inside receiver, but Matt, he can clearly play the Z. Yep. I need to see if he can play on the X, but he's a versatile player if I'm projecting him at the NFL level right now. He had 86 receptions for 1,212 yards and 9 touchdowns. I think this year he could be easily even better, Matt. He gets his quarterback and Brady Cook back. The only real important piece is the running back, Cody Schrader, but they brought in some transfers. Same coach, same system, same quarterback, good offensive line. Burden could go to the moon. I have him outside the top 10 right now overall, but he could slip into the top 10 or be the number 1 receiver if he has another terrific season.
All right, now to John's number 1 wide receiver, my number 2 wide receiver, Tetairo McMillan out of Arizona. Woohoo! This is a big man, all of 6'5", 205 pounds, and he does not move like somebody. When you see 6'5" in your head, you think a guy, maybe he's a little clunky, maybe he's a little slow, maybe he can't get going right away. Nope. Not a chance, dude. McMillan, T-Mac, he is an athletic boundary presence. He's got great ball tracking ability. He gets up and going. He's fluid, man, and it helps him win downfield. I'm not huge on the stylistic comps and the 1-for-1s, but when I watched McMillan play, I saw a lot of Michael Pittman, man, like in the way that he can be deployed in an offense, the way that he tracks the ball. This is a guy you're always thinking about, right? Like, at least me, when I'm doing fantasy rankings, when I'm doing Devy rankings, right? Like, part of the rookie big board process is you're always thinking, how could he fit into a projection spreadsheet, right? Like, how can he translate into real fantasy football value? And when I watch McMillan play, like, this is a guy you could see yourself realistically projecting for 110, 130 targets as an NFL player. He's that type of athlete, that type of boundary presence, that type of reliable hands. And McMillan was one of these guys when Jed Fisher, their head coach, went off to the Washington and the portal opened up for Arizona. This was one of those guys. Everybody was trying to coach him. Like, think of the best, group of wide receivers in the country. Like, their head coach was willing to replace them anywhere to get McMillan. But him and Fafita, his high school college teammate, they stayed true to Arizona. They stayed close to home. So, if you're thinking about McMillan and saying, an Arizona wide receiver, you're putting him as wide receiver 1. You could slap an Alabama jersey on him. You could slap a, Michigan jersey on, whatever you'd want to put on him, man. He could have played for any team in the country. He chose to stay and play at Arizona this year. He for me is going to be a big riser. I think folks have started to catch on to McMillan, but aren't quite where we are with him. He's going to be a 1st-round draft pick. So that's my pitch for McMillan, John. So just build off of that.
6'5", 205. And see, I want to know, Matt and I have not talked about this prospect. We do independent, then we rank together. He doesn't He plays big and small paradoxically at the same time. He has little man feet. Like, I like his feet for a guy. They're not like cumbersome, and he gets open deep with speed, Matt. With those long legs, I mean, he is such a good athlete for a tall man. Like, I do think like he would be a perfect like 3 guard in the NBA. That's how fast I believe. Like, he is so athletic out there. He also is a classic X receiver. I mean, Matt, if you're drafting T-Mac, you are going to put him on the outside. Let him dominate the boundary. He can dominate you short. He can dominate you outside. He can dominate you deep down the field. As a freshman, 702 yards on 38 catches, my friends, with 8 touchdowns as a true freshman. That's an eye-popping season. But he was even so much better last year, Matt. He had 90 passes caught for 1,402 yards and 10 touchdowns. Again, second team all Pac-12. They were just so loaded in the Pac-12. And third team All-American. T-Mac, to me, screams dominant X boundary receiver. I think the range of outcomes, Cortland Sutton to AJ Green. I think he has that range of outcomes. In a bad case, he's Cortland Sutton. In a great, if he hits his ceiling, he's AJ Green with the Bengals. I think the sky's the ceiling. I'm really excited to watch Arizona football this year.
There you have it, our top 8 consensus wide receivers in a very promising 2025 class. If you're watching on YouTube, drop us a comment. If you're listening, make sure you are subscribed. And regardless of where you're listening in from, we appreciate you checking out this episode of The Rookie Big Board.